In today's video, we have an interview with Kirei, one of the highest performing solo queue players to ever play on EU West. So high performing in fact that not only is he a multi-season rank 1 player, he's also hit Challenger every single year under every single meta since Challenger even became a rank. So how does one stay so consistently high ranked? Today's interview answers just that question. Kirei also makes his own educational content, so all of his links will be in the description below. Also, the background footage is just gameplay from Kirei, so this video can be consumed the same way you would a podcast. Just put it on in the background and you won't miss a thing. And if after watching this you find yourself wanting to level up your game, check out the sponsor of today's video, tapin.gg. Tapin is a service to fit all your find a teammate needs and find you a duo or coach in under 30 seconds. And I know the end of the rank split is right around the corner, so why not use Tapin to reach your new peak? If you use code RIVAL, you'll get 20% off your next 3 orders, whether that's finding a duo or using their coaching service. You're sure to find what you're after. They even let me try their coaching just so I knew it was a good product to advertise, and I have to say I was pretty impressed. We went over my fundamentals first before going into a live viewing of one of my games, and having a fresh perspective on my gameplay was actually really helpful. And with one of the lowest market prices when it comes to coaching, you can finally get the guidance you need without having to pay $300 for 1 hour and invest in the best version of yourself. All the links you need to get started are of course in the description, and thank you so much to Tapin for sponsoring this video. Enjoy. Following on from the trend of my interview guests accomplishing some pretty amazing solo queue feats, we have Kirei with us today, a jungler from EU West. So last time we had a 2000 LP top laner, and before that we had a Master Yi one trick who got rank 1, but this time we have one of the very few people in the world to have hit Challenger literally every single time since the rank was invented. If you want to watch any of the previous interviews I've done, they'll also be linked in the description. But for now, let's find out what makes Kirei one of the most winning solo queue players ever. Welcome on today, Kirei. It's not every day I get to talk to a 13-time challenger and find out his solo queue secrets.
Hey Rival, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and sharing basically all my secrets and knowledge to help all of you, and I hope you guys will enjoy it.
All of Kirei's links will be in the description below, you guys. He's a streamer. He has a very active Discord community where you can reach out to him personally for lessons and all that. But before we begin the interview, I'm just going to get a quick background on him as a player as well. So if you just want to tell everyone kind of where you came from and why you started playing League, all that kind of thing, we'll get started from there.
Where it came from. Before League of Legends, I actually played Guild Wars 2 professionally. I was actually in Curse. I was like 17-year-old back then, but I was like one of the best players in the server on Thief, like an assassin role. And then my friends told me, hey, Kirei, you want to try some League of Legends? And of course, if you're like 17, you're like, sure, let's play some League of Legends. And yeah, since then on, I got actually really hooked into the game and actually quit Guild Wars. And I started playing League like for fun at first. I didn't even plan to go pro, but then I guess I just did become pro in League of Legends, and here I am.
So you just kind of transitioned from Guild Wars into League, and then you obviously just started getting better and better, and you were like, oh, I can probably take this pretty seriously.
Yeah, surprisingly, because I just really enjoyed the game at first, and I think everyone that started League of Legends was toxic, which I was not really toxic, but I was, let's say, a goofy troll. If someone would just write anything to me, or I would just troll them. That's kind of toxic, I guess. But I mean, that's why I was stuck in Silver 3 for like the Silver 1 for like 3 months. But we'll be talking about this later in the show. But in the next 3 months, actually, I got Challenger. And
Oh, wow.
I can explain like how I got there, actually. Of course, a bit of talent, but if anything, it was like my mindset.
So you went from Silver in your first season to Challenger, like straight after that in 3 months.
Yeah, so within 6 months, I actually did get Challenger in Season 3.
That is insane. That's mental. Yeah, congratulations on that. I'm really looking forward to hearing about that, actually. We can jump into some broad solo queue questions now, if you'd like. We'll probably start with the most broad one. Like, what's just your general advice for climbing in solo queue?
A general advice for climbing for sure is having accountability. So when I say accountability, it's like we all do this, but I'm sure all of you that are listening are doing this, which is that you are almost always thinking sometimes what others could have done better, which they could have done better, right? But in the end, you always get random teammates, and the only thing that you can do better every single game is your own gameplay. So sometimes you can be like, he plays bad, but in my opinion, you should think like that. Once you've looked at your own gameplay and think, was there anything else I could have done better? If you feel like you couldn't, look again, get more perspective, because there's always something you can do better. And even for me, I'm a challenger player. I've played the game for like, 12 years. I can still do things better, always, always, always. So if you're like not even challenger yet, you can always get better. So focus on yourself. That's like the most important thing, and that's the only way you'll actually climb really fast.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think like as you said, accountability is probably the biggest thing, and like adding on top of that as well, I think kind of to accentuate your point, you're the only consistent variable in every single game. Like
Yeah,
every game
yeah,
you're going to get carried or someone's going to, almost lose you the game, but you're the only one that's going to be able to stabilize their lane or win their lane, so they're the parts that you should focus on. That's so true.
yeah. And people have to realize that you can't win every single game. If Canyon comes to Europe, which is in my opinion the best jungler in the world, even he won't win every single game. There's some games you just cannot win. But
Yeah.
as long as you stay consistent, you can actually win at least above 55%, which will in the end make you climb in the long run.
Yeah, that's so true. So what are your typical, you had a quick touch on this before the interview. What are your typical processes for breaking tilt? Like, is there anything you do specifically in or out of the game? And also, how many losses in a row would warrant a break from the game for you?
hmm we can start with the losses first. I think this depends per person. I, for example, need like maybe 10 losses to take a break
Yeah.
in a row. Okay. And that maybe 2 days in a row. Okay. Then I'm like, all right, maybe I should revisit my plans and see what I need to do. But for some other people, it might be legit 2 losses. And that's all it takes, right? So you have to know yourself and recognize your own emotions and then act on it. Because if you're tilted and you continue, what's going to happen is that you're probably not going to play at your best and you might lose. And if you keep playing when you're tilted, your current elo is not actually your real elo. That's like your emotional tilt elo when, But let's say you're on your 100, not tilted, playing those games, you'll be surprised how much higher people would be if they're fully focused and not tilted.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing I tilt. Like, it really depends on you. And regarding how to untilt, I think I don't hear this advice too often, but before you get tilted, you have to like actually, I would say, train your mental and you have to take care of yourself, which starts by having good sleep. Everyone knows if you have shit sleep, you're actually not gonna be too happy for the next day when you have bad games.
Yep.
And you'll be tilted faster. So some people might neglect it, and especially we gamers, and even I did it sometimes, which is that I slept 6 hours, and I did definitely notice the next day I was like a lot more emotional when I
Hmm.
lost. And even though I'm like a super calm person for people that know me, even I would get frustrated and more tilted, and I would lash out on my teammates. Like I would think, "What are they doing?" Instead of being like self accountable. So sleep is number one. And besides sleep, I highly recommend for people when they wake up, if you play, let's say, 10 hours a day or less, I would recommend you to at least in the morning walk outside, see some sunshine, get some movement in, and have some positive thinking. Because I do think that your frame of mind is very important. Because what happens is that when people tilt, they think very negatively. They start losing focus on the game and they start thinking about other things that are not related on what they have to do in the current moment. So the advice that I have is that every single time you tilt, you have to get back to reality and you need like a mantra. So when I say mantra, you have to try to snap out of your autopilot slash tilt. And how do you do that? For me, I have my own mantra, which is just what and when. Every time I'm like feeling, I'm not focused, I just think what and when. So what do I mean with what and when? I just think, okay, what am I playing for? So you press tab, see who's winning, and you just want to play for the guy. So when I say when, usually if you need to base or take your camps or I don't know, you have a lot of gold, right? You don't want to be fighting. So till you have the right base or you took your camps, you just track the enemy jungler. So essentially, if you're doing those two things, you'll actually be able to like get out of your autopilot slash tilt and focus more on the current situation, and that will help a lot in the game.
Yep. I really like all those answers. So, kind of like to recap what I took away from that personally. And also, I have to reiterate, Kirei has gotten challenger like 13 times now. So, I think this is advice that someone you like. It literally can't be wrong advice. You've succeeded at the highest level for the longest time. So, if people actually really internalize the information that they're saying, this could have really positive effects on their gameplay. So, what I took away from what you said is we should probably set ourselves up for a positive mindset. Like as you said, I think you said it before the call, like prevention instead of dealing with it, right? Like you want to be in a positive frame of mind before you even start to play the game. Is that what we said before?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so that'll help you break tilt, and then also just like not thinking about it negatively, and playing more objectively, I guess, like less emotional based. Because that's actually so true what you said about as well about like what when you're playing tilted, you're playing at like your tilt elo, right? Like instead of your real elo. That's so
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
yeah.
fantastic answer. I really like that. Do you have anything else that you want to add there?
Yeah, there's a thing that I would like add to it. Of course, you can do all of these things, but you might still get tilted, which is very normal, by the way. But it's gonna like at least delay your tilt. It's
Yep.
gonna be maybe like after two more extra games, right? But let's say the moment you tilt, what I would recommend is that it depends per person, but as well, just go for a walk, and as well, if you tilt, essentially, you have to train your mind. So whenever you tilt in game, that's because you are used to like think about negative things or either flame your teammates. But it's the moment you start noticing that you're doing that, try to change your mind and try to think about something else, which is like related to the game in the current state.
Hmm.
Because it's just a muscle you have to train and it's not happening overnight. It's going to take practice and time. But honestly, that advice that I just gave is not just for League. I think even in life, right? I think dwelling too much on the past that is irrelevant for the future is not useful.
Hmm.
And if you want to gain elo, you have to think like this: Are you with tilting moving towards your goal, or are you moving away from it? Right.
Yep.
So you have to like really try to figure it out ASAP and reframe your mindset in a positive manner.
Yeah. So like I really like the what and when thing because you're using like an objectivity cue to pull yourself from, like away from like an emotional state. Like when you said what and when, like with the spending your gold or like who am I playing for or like whatever, actually starts to make you think properly about your win cons and things like that, as opposed to like just pulling yourself away from like some easy hook your thresh just missed or whatever. I really like that advice. That's great.
Yeah.
So obviously you've played this game through like literally every single meta, every single year. And people still get really hung up on like role and champion and like whatever. But do you believe that you can get to challenger or like the highest rank playing any champion or role? And do you also, to expand on this question, do you think that jungle is the strongest role?
I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I do think jungle is a strong role. It can impact laners' mental severely. So you can decide to break one person, and that one person will run it down for you and win the game. So I do think that jungle, in that regard, does have the most power. And of course, right, it's like involved in every single skirmish. It can save a losing lane to like a winning lane. So I do think it is the most OP role, and even in Korea, you can see that junglers in general are like super high elo.
Hmm.
Like, or like when I say super high elo, like top 10 a lot, which is it proves the point.
Yes, I agree. And do you think anyone, so like people obviously have this like hyper fixation on, like people watch tier lists, right, to like find out what the best champion is and like what the best items to build. But do you think that's like overvalued information, or do you think like you have to be a meta slave, or can people kind of get away with playing what they want to play and climbing with that?
Personally, I think you can almost always get away with what you want to play and climb if you are good.
Yep.
But the thing is that can you make it easier for yourself? For sure. So I think so far since I started coaching, even I was playing pro, I was coaching a bit. The trend that I've noticed is that the people that got challenger from like even Diamond Hearthstone for 8 years, they managed to get challenger only because they actually, first of all, are really good on their champion. Was the meta most of the times? Yes. But I've seen other people as well that played non-meta champs to challenger, but that's because they spent literally, I don't know, 5 to 10,000 hours on that specific champion. And once I learned my fundamentals, they managed to break through. But they had to spend so much time plus fundamentals to get there. So yes, it is possible, but it is so much harder than just playing a strong meta champion with fundamentals. It just makes your life easier.
Yep. No, so I totally agree with that. Like I think as a player who's playing a champion that's kind of not in the meta at the like kind of Riven's not necessarily bad ever, but I just like I'll play against some meta champion like Skarner was a terrorist like a few patches ago.
Oh yeah, that's unplayable now.
Dude, like I'm doing everything. I am. It's like that meme where that dude's just like smashing his keyboard, like sweating, and then the Skarner's just like singing to himself. And I'm trying to do all these like animation cancels, like dodging every ability, and he just hits like Q auto and takes like half my HP. I'm like, what? Why am I playing this champ?
Yeah, but ridiculous. That was my permaban champion for like a month or 2 months straight. That
Dude,
was not playable.
I don't understand how they let the like backwards hook thing go on for so long. Like, you know how he could just like hook you and it would like be as if he insect you, like the coding bug? I don't know why that was still a thing.
I don't know. I don't know either. It's really crazy, you
That,
know.
that was so stupid to deal with. I'd be like playing off a slow push, and he would just like insect me into the tower at like level 3, and I'm like, I'm not even behind, like mispositioned, dude. I don't want to talk about it. I'm gonna get mad. Um,
I get it. I get it. I get it completely. Don't worry.
yeah, no. So you were so right there. But that was a really good answer. So on to the next. As a jungler, your pathing is obviously paramount in terms of importance. How do you establish gameplay plans based on draft and jungle starting positions?
Yeah. So that's a very good question, right? So jungle is like you can do so many things, and that's why I think jungle is like super OP. And what some people don't get is that first of all, there are some drafts where you outscale it, right?
Hmm.
And the crazy part is that when you outscale, whenever I coach people, I see that they still try to gank. Then sometimes you just have to full clear, cover slow pushes, not do anything, and you will win a game, right? So the rules that in general that I will be looking at is like usually, okay, what's the win condition of like my team and enemy team? You usually need experience to recognize a bit what's your win condition. Let's put it this way: I would say 80% is bot lane. Bot lane is really OP
Hmm.
because if your support is ahead, he can roam mid lane and he will tilt the enemy mid laner for sure. Because usually if people don't ping SS and mid laners die, they're gonna like indirectly talk to their teammates. You don't even see it, but I'm sure it happens to all of you.
Yeah.
Your mid laner is gonna type, "What the hell? Support is here." He's gonna make his jungler tilted, and like even the support is gonna tilt everyone.
Hmm.
And on top of that, the support can invade the enemy jungler, which allows you to get full control, which makes the game a lot easier as well. So, and even in mid game, right? After minute 14, the support can push mid lane into side lane, and even if enemy top lanes, let's say 5-0, what is he gonna do against the fat bot lane?
Yeah.
In
I
the
know.
current meta, no counterplay. Like before in the past, there were some champs that could play against bot laners, but right now it's just good luck, you know? So how do you identify win condition? 80% bot. And when it's a 20% top lane, then both top laners are super volatile and they have, let's say, they ignite or something, or they just have to brawl and they have to fight, and bot lane's fine. Sure. Then you can path early game towards top side, but usually after level 6, you still path towards bot because usually top lanes are self sustainable after 6. And if they play like a human and play safe, they shouldn't be able to die. And if enemy jungler ever shows top lane, you should be able to dive enemy bot lane after 6 quite easily.
Yeah. Or take dragon,
So
one or the other.
or take dragon, yeah, exactly right. So once you've established your win condition, then you have to start think, okay, which lanes are volatile? Because once you recognize which lanes are volatile, you can then think, what is the enemy jungle gonna do? And once you know what the enemy jungle is gonna do, then you can make a game plan. Like let's say we're blue side and he's red side, and let's say that he wants to play towards bot side. If you're playing a champ like let's say Bel'Veth, Lilia, you could do your Raptors into enemy blue Gromp. And technically, what you're doing is that you can deny him his win condition, which is let's say bot lane, and you can maybe even gank their bot lane. So it really depends on what champion you're playing and how to path. But it's like I have to go into so much detail because it's like literally so many options.
Yeah.
But I would have to like draw it down, you know.
No, that was a good broad answer. So just for those people who might not understand, can you just explain or expand on like what technically is a volatile matchup?
Mhm. So when I say volatile matchup, it's usually like laners that have to trade, and when they trade, of course, it can be low HP, right? But how can you recognize when lane is volatile? When if they don't contest, they're gonna lose a lot.
Hmm.
So let's say bot lane, you have like an Ezreal Karma against Lucianami. If you don't contest against Ezreal Karma and you get pushed against Lucianami, you are gonna lose a lot of HP and potentially farm, and that makes you very exposed to a potential dive.
Hmm.
So let's say on top lane, right? You have like Renekton against Riven. If they're going for minion, they will just trade. So both of them have to trade, and if they don't trade, they will lose minions.
Hmm.
So that's how we see volatile matchups. Like laners, they just have to fight, and if you don't fight, you will lose the lane slowly, and you will bleed out.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would also expand and say like I think something that classes a volatile matchup is also like a shutout matchup. So like let's take like Riven Fiora for example. I know this is a top lane matchup, but it's like whoever's ahead essentially runs side lane for the rest of the game. So it's like just one
Yeah,
gank
yeah, yeah. That as
can
well.
just
Yeah.
yeah. And that's also the same as bot lane. Like if a Lucian's ahead of an Ezreal, there's just no way. And then if an Ezreal's ahead of a Lucian, there's just no way because Ezreal's just going to get him to Q him for free, or Lucian will just E on him. Like whatever like side the scale is tipped in, it's just unplayable for the other side.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I totally agree. So when you have a lead in the jungle, what are the most effective ways you spread it to the team or impact the map? And this is kind of just like dumbed down. Like, how do you 1v9 essentially?
Yeah. So the funny thing is the mantra that I've mentioned. If you what to win, if you think deeper about it, right? So as a jungler, you can be fed, but essentially you still want to play for your win condition because you still need to play with a laner that is really strong because that's gonna have you the highest chances of winning skirmishes, right? So essentially, with the what and when, you're having a plan which helps you path towards your win condition. And why is it important to have a plan? Because in solo queue, very often, every single laner will ping you to gank their lane. Yes, every single laner. So you need to have a basic plan who you want to play for. Because then you can evaluate, okay, is it better to play for a win con or is it better to go randomly for the top lane gank? Because I've seen so many people, let's say they go to golems on red side, they just go top lane because they see them fighting.
Yeah, it's close, yeah.
It's like very normal. Not even if it's close. They're like, oh, okay, it's fighting, let me go there. And what's happening is that you're not playing for win condition. And if you ever go top lane, you're going to be down tempo, which means that enemy jungler now can potentially gank your winning condition. And very often, if let's say bot lane is 1-0, they will play aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I think up till, no joke, Grandmaster / Challenger Elo, and even in Challenger, if laners are winning, they will play aggressive. Like, they will actually play under enemy tower, and they will, make sure they're vulnerable. So that's why it's so important as a jungler to be efficient with your time and be there when there's a fight breaking out. So your win condition keeps on winning.
Yep. So you would
So
say
the next,
prioritize your win condition over like what you kind of even would feel is the correct play at the time, like, or you're playing more like you don't want to play reactive, you want to play more like towards your game plan.
yes, I wouldn't say it's like always like that, right? But that's the safest way to play League of Legends if you're below, I would say below Diamond, honestly. I'm not even kidding. Like, for sure.
Yep.
And regarding the when, it's like when I say when, it's just like make sure you track enemy jungle so it doesn't kill your win con or any laner till then. Mm-hmm. So as long as you have a good game plan, path towards the right lane, and your laners don't die before that, you shouldn't be able to lose.
Yep. So we'll link that back to the most effective way to spread it to the team. If you have a lead in the jungle, you obviously have your win con established, you would try to spread your gold towards your win con.
Yeah, I would just try to path there as soon as possible and look for skirmishes. And if there's no skirmish, let's say, then I would use that pressure to transfer that into another lane or on potential invade to get full control, which then allows me to spot him, which allows me to make better decisions. Mm-hmm. And by getting division, that basically means your laners probably cannot die, and that helps you make better decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so true. I totally agree with that. So on that as well, do you think you've obviously played League for like upwards of 12 years, as you said. Was there a point or just somewhere along the way that a gameplay mechanic or principle you implemented had a drastic effect on your gameplay? And this might even be like your first season where you said you went from silver to challenger in 6 months. Like what are these like things that you literally had a thought and then you implemented it into your gameplay and you saw like immediate results?
Also, I would say mostly the results that I had, mostly because I OTP'd. I literally OTP'd Elise. For people that know me back then, I was called Best Elise Korea. I played internationally as well with Dignitas against like some Chinese team, and I was like really on crack with the champion. So essentially, how I climbed is just OTPing because, and I mean, why is OTPing important? It wasn't anything like that I really specifically focused on. I focused on my accountability. I focused on one specific champion. I tried to understand my matchups very well, my limits, and that allowed me to just be good on my champion, which allowed me to climb.
Yep.
So I would say that helped me a lot. And why is OTPing important? Well, because like there's like literally 10,000 different universes that can happen, or like how a certain skirmish could have played out. But if you play the same champion over and over and over again, you'll have a much better feeling for it. And winning that one extra skirmish, that might win the game. Whereas if you play, let's say, on a different champion and you lost the skirmish because you, I don't know, screwed up, that might have lost you the game. So it adds up, right, in the long term if you master champion.
Yep. So you think like one tricking is pretty important to probably even still to like when you get, because you can kind of get away with just playing whatever you want till probably about master. So you think
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
one tricking whatever you want till then, and then maybe like diversifying your champion pool with meta picks around that time, because you're gonna have to play against meta picks, right? So playing meta picks will help
Mhm.
nullify their meta picks.
Yeah. I would say two tricking nowadays though, because back then it was a lot easier because people weren't as smart back. People do get better. So I do think having one AP and one AD champion helps a lot in the jungle because very often, if let's say you have a Z OTP and your top lane is a Kiana OTP, and let's say you're a Kha'Zix OTP, like having an AP option is gonna save so much pain.
Yep.
Like even if you're not as proficient on the champion, I would highly recommend like one AP and one AD.
Yep. So you reckon like pouring a lot of your resources into one champion and then having another champion that covers that champion's weaknesses.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the best.
Yep. No, I like that advice. That makes definite sense. So we'd probably focus on champion pool, and also as you said, like not dying, I think as well is probably, like you indirectly said that, like lacking the accountability part, just like because you usually reflect, like your points of reflection are deaths usually, right? Like why did I die? Like what's, like, you know, maybe I traded bad and it slow pushed into my tower and I got dove or something like that, and that stemmed from that bad trade. So like your accountability to like recognize that mistake to prevent that death in the future is probably one of those parts, and then also your champion pool.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Like, sorry, go.
so one thing I want to add as well regarding just like learning, I think nowadays as well, because League is so advanced, I would recommend that if you're, let's say, a bit newer to the game, try watching someone that has spent 10 to 20,000 hours. They have played the game, and it basically explains you what they're thinking a bit, because you can cheat so much time by just watching the best players and learn from them, and you learn things you're like, wait, I never thought of this. So it's very important to get perspective, and once you get perspective, apply it, and it's all about repetition then. And once you feel like you've got a good hang of that, then try to get more perspective, and then try to keep like applying again. And that's how to improve faster as well.
Yep, I totally agree with that. So, do you have any solo queue non-negotiables? Like, let's say you only play 3 games a day, or we touched on it before, like your 2 losses thing. Obviously, you say like 10 losses, but what are some things that you just don't? You're like, this thing when you play solo queue is non-negotiable. Like, what are those things for you?
Mm, for me, if I think about it, the non-negotiable is kind of just like flaming my teammates.
Yep, no typing.
Like no joke, yeah, no typing. Because if anything, if people are typing, try to say, guys, we can win. Because you need to balance it out, right? Some people are just way too negative, and you need to like balance it out a bit of positivity, especially if you're like losing. Because I mean, you've been probably in situations where you're like 0-4 top lane,
Mhm.
you don't see a way of winning the game because your lane is just so doomed and you cannot do anything. So it helps if one player says, "Oh, I can carry," so you're gonna stop being so desperate.
Yep.
Because I'm a believer that people are not intentionally losing; they just don't know what to do to win a game because they don't see it from their perspective.
Mhm.
And I'm sure all of you have seen that there's some games people are perma yapping, perma typing,
Mhm.
and the game is really lost. But the moment the enemy trolled, they shut up and play the game.
Yeah,
you
that's so
know?
true. Yep, I hard
So
agree with
it's not
that.
like people, yeah, it's not like people want to lose. They just don't know what it takes to win. So, like I said, not typing and being positive, it will actually help a lot because let's say 1 out of the 7 games, okay? If you're being positive and actually try your best, let's say you win it 1 out of 7 games
Mhm.
because you actually are positive. That's like a 40 LP net because the game that you lost is minus 20, and the game that if you would win is plus 20.
Mhm. Yep, that's so true. I also think.
And let's say you play,
Sorry, you
yeah.
go.
Oh yeah, so let's say you play like 70 games, right? That's like actually 400 LP difference. So it's just a perspective like how much it matters to actually just try your best, no chatting, because people give up way too fast, and there's so many games that you can easily win from behind. And I'm sure that everyone experienced these games, but it's just really tough.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think on that, like that's such a good non-negotiable, because if you just associate yourself as that type of player that just never types or only types productive things, you should also mute chat, because when you're even if you're not typing but you're reading the negative things, you're thinking about trying to like neutralize that. Like you should just be focusing on the game. Like muting is really important too, I think.
For sure, for sure. I always tell people to mute the chat. Always. Especially as a jungler. Please mute the chat. It's
Yeah.
part of your role to get flamed. It's just you've chosen a role that you will get flamed no matter what. So mute chat.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. That's good. That's good. I think those like really cementing those like non-negotiables and like putting those in your player identity are really important for success. So I like that one a lot. So you've played literally every single meta that's existed. Do you have a favorite one?
I think the most enjoyable meta was probably where it was like skill based AP and AD junglers like Nidalee, Elise, Lee Sin, Graves, Kindred. So basically early game junglers we would have to fight a lot and skirmish. You could go AP and AD. That's the best meta, I think. That was the most fun because it was the most skill expressive meta and the most snowbally, which is nice because if you're better, you win. If you're worse, then well, time to work on something, you know?
Yeah. Do you remember specifically what season that was? Or like what seasons we've had recently that has been like the type of meta that you've played in a lot?
I think that was season 5, 6, I think.
Yep.
The meta that I'm talking about. That was a while ago, I believe. That was like a very long time ago.
Yeah, I remember this time around that time where Lee Sin was just picked like every single game, and I don't mind seeing Lee Sin in my game because he's one of those like really rare champions, same as Thresh in my opinion. He's just one of those champions that like when they're doing things on the map, it's because you like misplayed. You know, like they don't feel unfair to play against very often, if that makes sense. Like hit by a Lee Q, you could have dodged it. Hit by a Thresh Q, you could have dodged it. Like, I totally agree with that. So back to your SoloQ journey in EU West, who are a few players that you play against regularly that you know are going to give you like a hard time? And who are the best players you play against in SoloQ?
I mean, the two players that come to mind is Rozork and Inspired. I mean, Inspired went to US. He's playing for FlyQuest. But Rozork as well, I think that he often gets rank 1, right? And I think he's like probably one of the best mechanical junglers in Europe, I believe. So I always have a good time playing against him. And it's really fun always. Outside, let's say, the pro players, of course, let's say just pure SoloQ players. I actually enjoy playing against Agron as well in SoloQ. It's always fun to play against him. He's just very consistent, right? He doesn't do anything crazy, but he just full clears and plays his champion super well. Well, some people might not see, but I think he just has very, very good champion mastery and just stays even or ahead. And he's very good at like recognizing the interest. Like if someone's pinging, he's like, well, you do you and I do I, you know? And he's just very consistent, right? He's like a very monk mental where he doesn't care about others and does what he thinks is right, which is super good. So that's why it's fun to play against him. He doesn't like just flip a lot of things.
Yeah, he's just a player. He's just there to play the game.
Yeah, he's just consistent, right? He's not doing anything crazy, but he's just being very consistent. And in the end, if you have a positive win rate, you will climb.
Yep. He also is like, what I've noticed, because I watch Agron a little bit, he's a crazy skirmisher. He is such a good skirmisher.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Like, even early levels, he'll just play from his range and like he'll cast or like rotate, like put his spells on a rotation and he will like leave the fight or like go to brush or something and like wait for them and then he'll like, you know what I mean? Like he'll just play the fight really smart.
Yeah. And that's really essential, right? Like champion mastery. Like the thing that's super important that I'm not sure if I mentioned that. I did actually, it's just OTPing, right? That's essentially just champion mastery. Knowing, actually one thing I forgot to say is just like knowing how to learn from the best, right? Because a lot of people do passive learning instead of like actively thinking. So what do I mean by that? People should actually, like, let's say, watch someone, pause the video, and think, how would I play it? Like, how and when would I use my abilities? And then play and see what they do. And if they do something differently, try to understand, wait, that's so much different than how I would have played it. And many people just like passive watch by just like watching someone and be like, nice, instead of actively thinking. And you will learn so much faster by actively thinking. That's a really big tip as of people that want to learn a champion.
Yeah, I like that. I actually don't think I've had that as an answer to any of my questions, but I think the difference between passive and active learning is massive. And if you guys don't know what that is, just go give it a quick Google. It literally just means to actually cognitively absorb what's happening as opposed to just like watching the game, you know what I mean? And like having to learn through repetition. If you actually can like pinpoint those parts that you're learning from as opposed to just like watching the game, and you think about the game in an active manner, you'll learn a lot faster, just as Kirei said.
Yes,
so
a lot faster.
So if you need to lock in for a win, what champion are you picking? Are you just picking Elise or is it always matchup dependent?
It depends on the meta, honestly.
Yep.
So I mean, I did play pro for like 8 years, so I did have to play a lot of different champions. And of course, there's some champs I'm better at than others, but in certain drafts, some champs are just so much better that my skill of a certain champion can't make up for, you know,
How much better
the
the
draft.
champ is.
Yeah, exactly, right. So for me, at least personally, it just depends on the draft. But let's say it's World Finals, like 2-2 against T1. I have to choose my comfort champion. It would probably be Kindred, I think.
Yeah,
Kindred,
well.
yeah.
Yep. Is that do you have a favorite skin in your champion pool as well?
No, not really.
No, just pick whatever.
Just pick whatever, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So you've played on multiple servers, right?
Yeah, I played Korea, Vietnam.
Mhm.
I played a lot of servers, yeah. I played a lot of servers, yeah.
What do you think's that like? Do you think it's the truth about Korea, or like, do you think there's harder servers to play on?
I have never played in China actually, even though I'm Chinese.
Yep.
So the thing is that I think in season 6, or season 8, I forgot which season, when I bootcamped, it was actually hard to climb. When I say actually hard to climb, top 10 AOS challengers could not get out of Master 200 LP.
Wow.
That's like how hard it was. And back then, it was like really, really competitive. But I feel like nowadays it became a lot easier from what I've seen at least, because I mean AOS happens the same. It's like a bit of an inflation. It's like more players but less quality.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think Korea is one of the hardest servers because Chinese people play there as well.
Yep.
And I haven't tried the Chinese servers. I have no idea, but I heard it's really crazy there too.
Mm-hmm. Because I think I saw a tweet from Raider, the US Challenger top lane. He plays like Darius and Jax.
Yeah.
And he said he thinks that Korea is a little bit overrated because I think he just got Challenger, or he's like very, very close to getting Challenger, and he got there pretty fast too. Do you think that, or do you think Korea is like pretty accurately rated as a server?
I think it's a bit overrated at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the past, like legit in season, like literally 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, maybe, it was actually really competitive. Like no joke, really competitive. You would see any challenger get Korean challenger, unless they're like a pro or something. Like I'm not even kidding here. Like streamers would not be able to get to challenger, but nowadays you do see streamers being able to get challenger, and back then it was not the case. So I do think it's a bit overrated, but is it still very good? Yes, no doubt.
Yep. So do you think maybe other regions are just catching up in terms of like solo queue quality, or do you think it's just because like the general player base is getting better? Like, what would you attribute that to?
Mm, I think people are getting better, but I think as well that it's a bit inflated.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people that, let's say, were diamond last season are randomly now in challenger. Maybe they've improved. I've no idea, but you do see often that it happens a lot. You know?
Yep. Yeah, they'll get like a really good. They'll play really well for like a week or something, and then they'll just like randomly climb 500 LP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they fall off at some point as well, right? If they don't learn fast enough and adapt.
Of course. Yeah. So I also wanted to ask as well, because we're going to wrap up pretty soon. Do you have any plans? Like, what are you've obviously been playing the game for over a decade now. What's next for like the Kirei brand, or do you have any future plans that you want to share?
I mean, it's a bit of a long story, right? But like last year, I was like with 100 Thieves, and not sure if you know, but 7 out of 10 teams abandoned their NA Challengers teams.
Yep.
So like then I was like having a 7 to 8 months off season.
Yep.
And then well, this off season, right? What happens that Peter has like a child, and he wasn't even there at the last week of EDC, or like last 2 weeks. So they were considering me for the head coach position.
Yep.
But I wasn't qualified yet to be the head coach position for my profile yet, because I've coached professionally only for 2 years,
Mhm.
which is a fair reason. So they took the academy head coach to the main team, and he took his assistant coach. So well, now once again I have like 7 months off season, right? And I feel like I've done my job as well, but some things are just outside my control, and it's not even about my performance. It's more like sometimes it just happens, and I don't know what's coming next year. But right now I'm just building my brand. I've as well coached G2 positionally last for like a few weeks.
Mhm.
And I've learned a lot as well there, and coaching another team, GK. They're currently in A Masters.
Yep.
And that's currently what I'm doing, just like some remote coaching for pro teams, coaching some individuals, streaming on the side, and I mean it's going better than expected. So unless I get like a super insane offer for next year, I would rather rely on myself and be the consistent factor
Yep.
than relying on like teams.
Yep.
And I do have a nick for just teaching people because I've helped literally diamond hardstick years to challenger,
Mhm.
and I don't think many people could do that. I mean, I've played, I've coached, and I've done everything that I could possibly do to help people, and I would like as well to share my knowledge, right? Which content creation does help. But that's something I'm thinking about, but I'm not committed fully to it yet, depending on what's there for next year. But I'll have to see still.
Yep. So for now, you're just going to work on building up your socials, streaming, YouTube, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. And just to wrap up as well, I wanted you to expand on your. So you said you went from like silver to challenger. I'm sure a lot of people want to know what that was like. If you want to kind of go more in depth there.
hmm So, like I said, I was like really okay. I wouldn't say mentally ill, but when I was a silver, let's just say that if someone would type to me and I disagreed with them, I would just make sure that they regret their decision.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Okay, let's put it that way. But okay, the funny thing is that okay, how did I change my mental so drastically? That's what I haven't said yet. Okay, so I asked a friend of mine because I was new to the game, what comes after diamond, and he told me you don't have to know. So I told him okay, and then I try hard for a fucking life. That's probably my competitive, right? Or like ego, whatever you like to call it, right? I was like, all right, now it's time to lock in and fucking try hard and review how I could have played every single situation better. And I mean, I was in school back then, of course.
Yep.
So I couldn't play like 14 hours a day. I was like playing 13 hours a day when I was playing pro. But if you're, let's say, in school, I could only play like 6 hours.
Yep.
Which is still a decent amount, right? Every single day. So, of course, if you want to get to challenger, you need to put in the time. I can't play 3 hours a day and get there in that. Like I've probably played 8 hours at least though, but
Mhm.
but yeah. So what I've noticed during the journey is that, which is something that I haven't realized back then, but if I think back about it, I was just very, very, very focused on myself. What could I have done better? Could I have played the situation better? Okay, my teammates inted. So what? Could I have adapted properly? Because in the end, solo queue is a random variable. You're always gonna get randoms, always. And unless you're in challenger, but even then, you can still get randoms.
Mhm.
And the only thing that you can rely on is your own skill. So what I put a lot of emphasis on is focusing on myself and thinking what could I do better. And I looked at every single replay. In between queues, I always looked what could I have done better.
Mhm.
Every single game. I played for 8 hours, and every single game I looked at what I could do better. And
Yep.
that's what helped me climb as fast. Of course, I'm a bit gifted with games, but I think without that, it would take me longer than 1 year. I'm sure of it.
Yep. I think that's actually what you just touched on when I interviewed Scenarius, the Master Yi one trick that got rank one. He also said the same
Mhm.
thing. He was super, super introspective. He like never would blame anybody, would never type. And if he misplayed, even if it was like a bad fight that his teammate took, he would always still blame himself. Like he would be like, I just shouldn't have followed. I should have like thought like future actively and just thought about like how that fight would play out before it even happened. I shouldn't have followed it. I should have gone and farmed first. Whatever it was, he would never blame his teammates. Like he would always just focus on what he could have done better in that fight. So that obviously he got rank one as well, and that is in alignment with what you just said. So yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that was a good answer. So we're gonna wrap up. Do you have anything else that you want to say? Like, obviously, I'll have all your links and everything in the bottom. And obviously, you guys who are watching this, you've heard how knowledgeable Kirei is about the game and how passionate he is about teaching as well. So I'm sure if you go check him out on all his other channels, he'd be more than happy to help you out. Yeah. What do you want to say?
Mm, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And I just hope that people got something out of it. And in the end, honestly, all these things that I've mentioned is not only useful in League. I legit apply those principles as well in my life, which is that accountability, right? Just thinking what could you have done because something shit could happen to you in real life. But in the end, I think most of those things you have control over some things. If not for sure, not everything, but there's some things you can for sure work on. And even like the mindset when it comes to negativity, something shit can happen. try to not dwell on it too long. Just focus on the positive parts and save yourself some headache. You know.
Yeah, no, I like that answer. I think
That's the
there's
biggest,
a lot of lessons that can be learned from League that you can apply to real life, and I don't think I've learned a lot about League, you know, and applying stuff like that to real life, and I think you're so right with that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much all, and hope people got value out of it.
Yeah, no, it was really good. I mean, I learn something every time I have an interview with someone. Like, I pretty much have only been interviewing like really extraordinary solo queue players, and what you achieved is just a testament to. It's the proof, right? Like, it's the amount of times you hit Challenger is just proof of all the things that you've just told us actually working. You know what I mean? So if there's stuff people to take away and how to climb, like it's the stuff that Kirei just covered.
I did get rank 1 5 times as well, though.
Oh yeah, that too. Of course. I don't even know if I mentioned that. Yes, you've been rank 1. One of the most rank 1 players in EUS as well.
Probably the most of Ogren, or if not still the most, though. Because I'm not sure how many time he has, but I think me and Maggi Felix have probably the most. With Ogren, maybe? I don't know how much Ogren has right now, but I'm a pro coach for 2 years right now, so I don't have the 6th one. But I think if I was 6 ones, I would be the most with Maggi Felix. I'm pretty sure.
That's crazy.
But I'm watching right now, so I'm a coach, so.
Oh, you're a weapon. Yeah, cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Everything related to Kirei, including his Discord, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, everything will be below. Go give him a follow and all those things if you're interested in learning about the game at this extremely deep level. And yeah, just thank you so much for your knowledge and your time today, man. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you too, and so much. Thanks to you too.
All good. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
You.